of the year. Thank you for joining us live from New York. Hello,
Greetings.
welcome to Media Snack. I've got to say it again because I just said it, we weren't live. Welcome to Media Snack, review of the year 2021, live from New York.
And greetings from London.
We still haven't figured all this stuff out. So we're doing, like it's always.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
It's only 10. Hello, welcome back to Media Snack, live from New York.
Greetings from London.
Right, let's do this. So if you've been watching Media Snack for the last 5 years, then you'll know that at the end of each year, David and I do a review of the year. We just kind of pick up on some kind of the key things, key trends. It's been interesting actually watching back some previous episodes, just actually how much new stuff there is that we talk about each year. You kind of forget, we get used to these things, and then we kind of move on. But it's just worth pausing just for a second, just to kind of think of some of the key trends that we've seen this year, and we'll also look ahead for our word of 2022.
Yeah.
To focus the minds a little bit, and also drum roll. We announce our person of the year. If you remember, last year we actually awarded it to the WFA's Project Spring, so we kind of gave a whole collection of people person of the year. Time Magazine already gave Elon Musk person of the year, so he had to kind of cross that off our list. Some argue he's a great marketer. Others not, but we've got somebody equally impressive lined up.
Yeah,
and we're not on the roof, of course, as well this year.
No, normally you've got me freezing, slightly terrified on a roof somewhere in London. Thankfully, you don't have to do that any longer.
We're not doing that. Okay, let's go.
Let's do it. M is for what?
M is for the only M really that everyone's been talking about this whole year is Metaverse, which really came to the fore, a couple of months ago when Facebook stepped forward and rebranded themselves Meta, obviously. But obviously they don't own the Metaverse. What is the Metaverse? Metaverse is a much bigger thing than just Facebook. It's really the next iteration of the internet. If you think about perhaps some phases of the internet, we started with desktop fixed internet, and then we've transitioned to the mobile internet. Which has brought us, mobility with internet services, but causes lots of problems because everyone walks around staring at their phone. The next iteration of that is to become a more three-dimensional or immersive web experience. And what that means is that we'll tend to increasingly begin to access the internet through virtual reality or augmented reality. And that creates lots of really, really interesting opportunities. It's not anything that's going to be owned by a single company. It's going to require collaboration across a number of different dozens and dozens or hundreds of companies. But some big players in Metaverse innovation. Obviously, Facebook are investing hugely in creating Metaverse and immersive experiences. But others that you might be aware of, particularly if you've got kids in the house, things like Roblox or Fortnite, owned by Epic Games, are good examples of kind of Metaverse principles, which are at the moment tend to be two-dimensional experiences. But the principle is that you interact with other people in a virtual environment. A good opportunity in the Metaverse is to kind of erode some of those borders and reduce friction between different platforms, so that it's actually a more seamless experience. So that's the next generation of the internet, let's just say. What does it mean for brands? Well, brands are increasingly have been participating as bringing their brands into internet experiences, particularly on the gaming side. And gaming is a strong part of the Metaverse, but it's not solely about gaming. There's more three-dimensional collaborations that can happen even through work, and that's something that we're obviously experimenting with as a business as well, is how to collaborate across geographies and boundaries in a three-dimensional way, or in a virtual way, I should say. There's some cynicism around Metaverse because people are worried that it's teaching our kids, or making them ill-equipped for the real world by only only existing in virtual sense. But if you've got kids that play Roblox or play Fortnite, it's a really good observation that you can make about how they operate. It's become very natural for them to build friendships and communities irrespective of geography. So it actually opens up opportunities potentially. If you don't live in big cities, you can connect with people, like-minded people, perhaps more easily through these kind of platforms. For brands, brands have got involved in, particularly in gaming, as I mentioned. But we're now seeing brands obviously making digital assets available for purchase. Fortnite is a really good example of a huge economy of people buying digital assets within an environment like this. So for brands, consumer brands, really big opportunity that they're obviously paying a lot of attention to. Big concerns on potential data privacy issues, which I'm sure will get resolved. So there'll be some hesitations around that. But that's an interesting one, and certainly probably the biggest or one of the biggest step forwards in potential for advertising, I think, in 2021.
Very good.
Okay, E.
E is for employment, or in particular, talent, or the shortage of talent, the lack of talent. And, we've talked about it in a previous episode, but I think that this is the biggest crisis that is facing our industry for ages. Talent is leaving the industry. They're certainly leaving agencies. They don't want to work for agencies. They're moving to brands. They're leaving the industry completely. And the problem that we've got is that talent is the one competitive advantage that every company has and that every company needs. And so agencies in particular have got to figure out a way of retaining good talent and bringing and nurturing new talent into their businesses, because as a client, that's what you're looking for. Most of the pitches that we run, most of the pitches that we've run, frankly, for the last 2 or 3 years, have at its core been based around bringing the very best talent to bear. And there's just a shortage of it. And so we need to figure out a way of building, nurturing, and retaining talent within the industry. So E is for employment, but in brackets, bring the talent back. D, Tom.
D, well, another big one. D is diversity. Diversity, the ANA, the Association of National Advertisers, named that their word of the year, and rightly so, because it's something which has really been focused for the industry, finally, and also a real focus for marketers. Most significant, I think, to talk about is the global diversity, equity, and inclusion census that was run this year. The first time that's ever happened for the industry. It was a great initiative involving a consortium led by the WFA, the World Federation of Advertisers, but including lots of other trade bodies and partners. Was a massive piece of research across 27 countries, I think it was, and Kantar managed the research and did a great job there. Got input from over 10,000 respondents. We'll link to it. If you haven't read the report from the census, you have to read it, because it's an important wake-up call for the industry, and it requires action, collective action. Some of the headlines, the big headline was that the census diagnosed some major challenges for the industry. I think one of the scary stats that came out of it, and there's lots of amazingly rich information in there, is that 17% of respondents actually said that they were thinking of leaving their current employer because of their concerns around diversity, equity, or inclusion. So it needs to be on the mind of every business leader, and we have to work collaboratively to make sure that as an industry we can do better than that. I won't go into all the details of it, because you should read it. And I certainly won't do it justice. The thing is that it's a really important first step for the industry. It was the first time that we've gathered that, and it's an opportunity for us to address maybe not just the symptoms of it, but really just go back to the root causes of an industry. There were some positives in it as well, which is that as an industry, we are the advertising industry, or the marketing and advertising industry, ranks higher than many other industries according to Kantar's benchmarks. But it does highlight some gaps, and particularly respondents felt there was discrimination on family status and age, was kind of interesting. We know that the advertising industry is a young industry, and by the time you hit your mid-40s, you kind of considered end of career in advertising, and that's kind of been an accepted truth. But that needs to change, and more flexible working to enable us to embrace better quality talent, better talent on a more diverse basis has to be a priority for the industry going forward. But we'll link to the report. If you haven't read it, please do, because it's an amazing piece of work. I
is for investment, and media seen as an investment rather than a cost. We've been banging on, Tom, now for 12, 13 years about how important media is to businesses and how it should be seen as an investment, not as a cost, and not managed as a cost. And I think over the last 4 or 5 years, we've seen significant improvement in that. In the last 18 months, I think we've seen a real acceleration in that. And the category or the stakeholder group that are really championing this acceleration or this kind of upbeat when it comes to media as an investment, and that's the procurement community. And I think if you were to look back as see what was the little spark that brought that to life, I think it was the WFA and their Project Spring, as you said, the winner of the Person of the Year's accolade last year. That piece of work was just brilliant because it succinctly galvanized the narrative around how procurement should see media moving forward. And I think that's been embraced by many of the procurement leaders that we speak to. And so they're banging the drum. They're banging the drum often louder than their media director peer group. And it's just working. So media in most companies now is being consistently seen as a lever, as a lever for growth, as an investment in business outcome, and not, thankfully, being looked as a commodity and as a price that just needs to be managed down. So very much media as an investment in growth.
Yeah, we said that the race to the bottom was over. Nobody won. We'll link to that episode. So I think, I'm pleased that we're making good progress. We're not there yet, though.
Not yet. A
is for accountability. The endless demand for advertisers for greater accountability, and rightly so. They want more transparency. They want to know where their money goes. They want to know how their money works in this industry. And it's got way, way, way too complicated, as we know, as we've been talking about for 10 years. Media has just got overbearingly complicated for the advertiser, and they demand now transparency and accountability. And they want to see it all. They want to see the entire supply chain and the path of their money. Mm-hmm. In the last year or so, we've had some really interesting insights come from some important studies. Yeah. Notably, last year, actually, the ISBAR PwC study looked at the programmatic supply chain. If you remember, that gave us this amazing new term, the unknown delta, which is still puzzling everybody. But actually, also this year, importantly, the ANA in the US decided to pick up that baton of the unknown delta and investigate further. So they've commissioned a study again into the programmatic supply chain. I was looking back 4 years ago. 4 years ago, I did a piece of film with Professor Mark Ritson where we talked about programmatic, and he was convinced that programmatic as a term would die. And I keep pointing out that it hasn't died just yet. But we talked 4 years ago about the challenges of the reputation of programmatic supply chain. And I'm not sure how much better it's got. If anything, it may have even got more complicated. We look to our trade bodies to guide us in these areas, and we look for the industry to come together to give advertisers the accountability and visibility they need of where their money goes. So that's not only a big issue for this year, but moving forward, hopefully we'll get some good results from the ANA study, and will give us more visibility into this area, because ultimately that's what advertisers need, and it's what their companies need to continue to invest in advertising. Here's a nice one for you. S.
Supply path optimization.
Good.
That. Sounds good. So that's the process, basically reducing the number of intermediaries, especially within the programmatic supply chain. So, beginning to truly understand and assess the value and the contribution that each of the intermediaries, each of the technology partners that you have that make up the non-working part of your kind of media, so that you can truly optimize and make that as sufficient as you possibly can. Because the whole point of technology and technology providers in that first part of the process is to make the rest of it as optimized and as effective as possible. But when that is beginning to turn into a very leaky chain, then it's a real kind of problem. So again, part of the insights that the report that ISBA and PwC came back with was that there's probably way too much of your capital, of an advertiser's capital, tied into that non-working part of it. So optimizing that element of it, making sure that each of those partners and suppliers within that first front bit are driving value is absolutely critical. So supply path optimization is going to be the way forward.
Yeah, and it's become increasingly popular. We've had more advertisers this year really applying those kind of disciplines. And I mean, we had written, this is when we very first started ID Comms, and one of those principles is that nobody that touches an advertiser's money should make money unless they're creating value for the advertiser. Right. It's a really simple principle. There's too much that going on, too many touches and not adding value. So more of that, please.
Tom, I've been particularly looking forward to this one.
Why is that?
N.
Well, it's non-fungible tokens, David. So, I mean, we're going to get into this game. So if anyone wants to start to bid on some Media Snack NFTs, you're very welcome. We'll make those available at some point. If you're not aware, NFT is non-fungible token, and it's a piece of information. It's a piece of data that verifies that you have ownership of some digital asset, which sounds, and the principle has been around quite a long time, but it's grown hugely in popularity this year. It's still pretty small, actually. It's got these headlines really belie the size of the market, but the adoption curve continues to be very steep and will continue to be very steep. But the principle that you can actually apply a claim of ownership to a digital asset which can be distributed infinitely is a kind of weird one to get your head around, but actually it makes a lot of sense. And it's created a very large trading community of these digital assets. So that can be anything. It can be image or video or lots of other different things. So and NFTs are recorded using blockchain technology. So that provides a kind of evidence, if you like, of provenance of ownership. Some skeptics are saying that this is a manipulated market by a very small number of people. Actually, if you look at who's really making money, it's a small proportion of people that are actually trading NFTs at the moment, but principles and fairness and transparency should level out on those kind of things. In the context of the metaverse we were talking about earlier, then proving ownership and being able to trade digital assets in that environment obviously makes a lot of sense. The digital assets might be as significant as owning physical assets. That's the principle. Brands are getting highly involved in this. There's many examples, too many to mention, but interestingly, Nike actually acquired an NFT studio now, and you've got examples of Nike, Adidas, and lots of other brands, opening stores, creating stores, as they have been doing within environments like Roblox and Fortnite and things like that. In some ways, they kind of make more sense, and I like the idea, this principle for ownership in digital assets kind of makes more sense, because digital assets are a lot more visible in many cases than physical assets. So if someone owns an oil painting and sticks it in cold storage for a decade, nobody sees it. There's no real need to have a record of who owns that, because that person physically owns that. But when people have access to digital assets, it's quite helpful. And the value of those things can increase over time, obviously through exposure. So it kind of makes sense to have that registered. But this was the year where really this thing has exploded, and I think brands have started leaning into the technology, and we'll see more of that next year. A is for
asynchronous working. So asynchronous working, great word, is basically the principle of having a team not needing to be all online at the same time to be productive. Okay, so it enables effective distributed workforces. So being able to find the best talent from anywhere in the world, whatever time zone, whatever geography, because you've got the right structures in place, the right communication protocols that enable that person to add value to your company wherever they are, right? And I love that. And we've been, as a company, have been kind of exploring that for a number of years. What actually brought that through to greater effect was the pandemic, when everybody was working from home. And businesses have had to become far more sophisticated and disciplined in the way that they communicate with each other, because they can't be in the same sort of office. Now that provides great value for those companies that get it right, because it means that you can tap into talent anywhere. We operate, I think, across 12 time zones. And we've got the infrastructure in place that enables that to sort of happen. And I think that's going to become embraced by more and more companies as we move forward. So the restrictions of geography, the restrictions of transportation no longer exist. What you've got to do is put in place the infrastructure to enable your employees to add value in the best way they can. And who cares where they live? So asynchronous working is the way forward.
And just to add to that, because I mean, this is what we talk about internally, it's a huge benefit for talent as well, because at the moment talent is pretty equally distributed, but the opportunities are not. They've been very centric, and particularly in our industry. I mean, there are key cities in the world that are advertising cities, and now we can distribute those opportunities far wider. And it also plays into inclusion as part of diversity, equity, and inclusion, because we're not demanding that people operate on a New York time zone. If you can communicate asynchronously and work asynchronously as a business, then you can actually be more inclusive, you can be more reasonable, you can allow people to work in a more flexible way. So it's a hugely powerful asset if you can get that right. Okay, we're getting to the end.
Yes. C, Tom.
C is for CTV, or connected TV. Again, another technology, let's call that has been around for a little while, but has seen rapid growth. And we're predicting a greater rate of growth in the years ahead. Connected TV. Connected TV, if you're not aware, is premium content, or they call it premium content, but it's content streamed through apps. And that might be a connected television, a physical device, a piece of hardware, smart TV, or a smart device. And it's growing fast. In 2021, estimates were that it took an additional 8% of advertiser spending in 2021. And those dollars typically, or pounds, or whatever currency you use, wherever you are typically shifting from what we might call more traditional or linear television, or broadcast or cable TV here in the US. Some advantages for advertisers are that you can there's more data available to allow slightly more precise targeting.
Yeah,
it's not highly precise, but it's getting better. And increasing quality of measurement across linear and connected TV means that advertisers are starting to take a bit more of a portfolio view of that, and we're seeing dollars obviously shift from linear into connected TV. Some big challenges. Unfortunately, CTV is showing itself to be yet another potential hotbed for advertising fraud. So again, buyer beware. It's another huge cause of concern for advertisers. It offers lots of new opportunities, expanded opportunities versus the linear TV buying. However, comes with complexity and risk. I think CTV, huge opportunity for agencies to be thought leaders. Maybe many media agencies consider themselves thought leaders in connected TV, but they've been pretty quiet. And it's actually the CTV industry and the providers that have probably had the loudest voice. But this is another area of complexity where agencies, I think, can step in and to be a core skill to lead us through the opportunities in this. It's really interesting for advertisers, not just because of its potential efficiency, but also the opportunity that CTV allows, that principle of television watching to be converted into commerce opportunities, which obviously linear was very limited in that ability. So to be able to connect what we'd always thought of as more of an offline medium, disconnected from the purchase path directly. Now maybe we have television which can convert convert a sale. And that's where advertisers are going to get very excited. So we see huge growth in this area.
Yeah.
Finally, we nearly made it. K is always the tricky one, isn't it? Because there's not many Ks. I mean, I think it's we all say the same thing, apart from one year where it was Keith Weed.
This year's easier. This year is easy. This was an obvious one. This is about KPIs, and making media KPIs more strategic and linking KPIs back to business outcomes. And there was a brilliant piece of work done by the ANA, titled very catchingly, Media KPIs That Matter. And they just done this. And we'll link it to this episode, but it was a brilliant study because it asked marketeers what their existing KPIs were, and almost all of them, to the tune of 85%, I think, were based on some sort of efficiency score. Return. It was some sort of CPM measurement, some very rudimentary, simplistic measurement by which they could kind of begin to start efficiently looking at their performance. Yet when asked what outcomes they believe should be linked to media, they all talked about outcomes. They all talked about business outcomes. And at the very least, this is a clear line in the sand. We're going to be moving away from looking at media as a greater commodity, cheaper pricing, especially within the digital space, that is going to have greater damage to any media investment than anything else, and linking it more to outcome-based metrics, which is the way forward. Because if you can do that, then media within your organization, Tommy, I know that you love this phrase, will rise higher in the corporate agenda because it becomes more critical to that growth agenda. So linking outcomes to media investments is critical. It's all around strategic KPIs.
Great. Good. We made it to the end. Let's talk about we'll come to our word of the year for next year, but our cherry on the 2021 Media Snack Review of the Year Sunday is our person of the year.
Yeah. So this media person of the year. So this person has had a stellar career in media, has held very high strategic, often digital roles in some of the largest organizations of the world. And I'm going to name a few: Cadbury's, we've got Mondelez, Diageo, most recently at GSK. He's pioneered strategic digital thinking and integration and transformation within those organizations, right? He's a speaker. He's a pioneer of diversity. He's an ambassador for the WFA when it comes to diversity. And he's one of the founders of a body within the UK that is all around stopping advertising abuse and making advertisers look at conscious choices when it comes to their advertising and establishing better behaviors. And he's somebody that we have looked at within the industry with great kind of admiration for a number of years. And I'm very curious to get him on and find out what his ambitions are for perhaps next year. So our media person of the year 2021 is Jerry Dakin.
Hi, guys. Wow, thank you.
Nice job, Jerry.
I know, I'm trying to get in the end of the year spirit, and also all the rest of my clothes are in the washing machine.
That's good. Lovely to see you, Jerry. I understand.
It's huge honor. I got the red eye back from New York this morning, and David was messaging me first thing this morning, being like, "Are you free this afternoon?" I was like, "Do I have to be?" But no, it's amazing. Thank you very much. And you hinted at a lot of what we've achieved this year was with a whole bunch of other people, with Belinda and the team at the WFA, with the Conscious Advertising Network team, with the advertising team. So there's a whole village behind that. But thanks for the recognition. We'll keep shouting about this stuff and hopefully driving a bit of a change.
So Jerry, but you're kind of at the moment, you just left GSK. I think your role at GSK, and or you're about to. And then what does 2022 hold for you? I know that there's a book.
Yeah, I'm on 2 months gardening leave, which I've never had before. And I'm loving that. It's giving you all the time I need to listen to the media snack podcast, because I'm just, taking notes ready for the next job on things I need to do with my KPIs, just setting up my team. It's all in there, guys. I'm writing a book. It's associated with the work I've done with the WFA around this idea of inclusive marketing, and representation really matters. I think you would hopefully struggle to find many marketers who disagree with that kind of sentiment. It's kind of our job as marketers to fairly reflect how consumers look, think, act, where they consume media, etc. But even with the best will in the world, it often doesn't happen. Stereotypes, everything from women are always housewives through to ignoring entire segments of our population. And I think that came out of that is like people who want to do it don't always know where to start, or the creative process, the marketing process is a long one, it's a busy one. What on earth do you need to be thinking about at each stage? So at the start of this year, I was going to say last year, at the start of this year, we worked with a whole bunch of people in the WFA to create this kind of guide to unconscious bias, and just what are the different stages, like when you're thinking about your insights, when you're thinking about your brief, when you're picking your partners, and especially from my personal passion in the media space, are you really thinking about your audiences? Are you really thinking about how your brand safety settings stop the bad stuff, yes, but don't block the good stuff, and bits like that. And I'm trying to build that out into something of a book. I'm super conscious that I'm not, myself don't have all the answers. So I'm trying to chat to a whole bunch of other interesting people over the course of the next 2 months that I've sort of got off, trying to pull something together, and hoping that will be a really interesting thing that I shall probably come and talk relentlessly about at the end of next year. I do have a new job lined up for next year, but I mean, next year feels too long away to start talking about it. But getting back into a big global media job with a team to shape, and really excited about that. But ask me on another time, and we can talk more about that.
We will. Well, Jerry, listen, I know that you're horribly jet lagged, and we really appreciate you joining us. Thank you, I think, from everybody for your leadership over the years. But I think this year we've seen just a handful of people. There's at the moment too few, but hopefully you inspire many, many more who kind of transcend the role of a marketer beyond our day-to-day job of maybe selling things to people. That actually understanding that we have responsibility, and we have a platform to communicate, and we have an opportunity to influence culture on a broader level. And I know you don't cease your optimism, which is again another rare thing sometimes in our cynical advertising world, is that whenever you catch Jerry, even horribly jet lagged, Jerry is full of optimism and hope, and it's contagious. Jerry genuinely is, and so we really appreciate it, because there's not enough of that, and so I think everybody's felt a bit of that.
Thank you. I think things are definitely getting better, which is why I'm optimistic. But we definitely need to get more people in the industry, do more. And thank you guys. I know you shout out on a number of the podcasts. I know as part of your review of the year, etc. We all have a role in talking about this stuff and seeing how it relates to our day jobs. Yeah. Thank you. It's a very kind honor.
Cool. Well, there'll be some kind of award. I don't know what it looks like these days, but something you'll be arriving to put on your shelf behind you at some point. But listen, get some sleep. Merry Christmas. Congratulations. Good luck on the book.
Thank you. See you guys
the next year.
Take care, Jerry. Merry Christmas.
Good. So that only leaves, let's just talk quickly about let's just think about 2022. Yeah. So our word for 2022 is going to be growth. Something that we all want. Good growth.
Good growth.
We all want. As an industry, obviously, the last couple of years we've suffered some kind of setbacks. Of course, the advertising and marketing industry reacts obviously to economic uncertainties and economic pressures. But we're seeing not only growth in the industry, but we're seeing the opportunity in media.
Yeah,
is often the single largest investment in growth that your company is going to make is going to be in media. And we've been banging the drum for 10 years to say the opportunity to get that right is hugely compelling. And so media as a source of business growth has to be our focus. And all of us in the industry can serve the needs of advertisers better to link every investment and every dollar spent in media to some kind of growth and positive outcome. And we can do that, and we can grow as an industry, and we can be better as an industry, as Jerry is teaching us. So growth is our word of the year. Maybe get some t-shirts for that for next year we can wear.
Very good.
Cool. That's it for this year. Thank you very much for watching a review of the year. It's been a wonderful, another roller coaster year in media. I've enjoyed it, but I could do with a break.
And on that note,
Good, excellent. Thank you for continuing to watch. We'll see you. We'll see you in 2022.
Bye for now.